Hello friends, Adam here with FED. So today we're going to be talking about a rather, I don't want to say controversial, but it's something that is talked about in the Fire Emblem community quite often, and that is the topic of balance in Fire Emblem. So today we're going to attempt to define balance in Fire Emblem. What does it actually mean to have balance in a single player strategy game? And also we're going to talk about, is it important? Is it something that the developers need to be considerate of when making the game? So I took to the FED Discord, which you can find a link to in the description, to ask this question. With no modifiers or anything else, I asked the people there, what is balance in Fire Emblem? And I got tons of great responses, but one in particular struck me as a solid definition. And this comes from Majin Matt, who is a good Let's Player / streamer of Fire Emblem in his own right. I'll leave a link to his channel in the description. Go support him if you can. Hit that red button for him. Help him out. So he said, I think balance in Fire Emblem is the ability to use whatever unit you want with success. Obviously, this suffers from the problem that some units will be better than others because of how easily they can do their thing, though I think the best balance Fire Emblem can have is the ability to choose not to use any of those good units and still find some form of success without needing to horribly break the game to make it work. So I think by this definition, most games, if not all the games in the series, are balanced. Looking at like Radiant Dawn. So there are some units in Radiant Dawn that are just better than every single other unit throughout most of the game. Like Har. Har is a Wyvern Lord in a game where Wyvern Lord's only weakness is to thunder magic, so he's not weak to arrows or anything, and he's not, and he can fly everywhere, has Canto, can rescue, is just amazing class, and his stats are just amazing. Comes at a really high level, can promote within a couple chapters, and just hard carry you throughout the entire game. And he's only outclassed by a few units that you get at the very, very end. Like, very end. And so really, his usefulness throughout the entire game is worth more to me than the strength of those few units at the very, very end of the game. But that game also has units who are obviously worse. They obviously are not wouldn't be as good statistically or just by other factors as Har. Units like Meg, who is a low-level armor knight who is locked to swords, which is one of the worst weapon types, if not the worst weapon type in the game, and has really low defense for an armor knight, but like decent speed, but not decent enough speed to not get doubled on hard mode. So she is this really weird amalgamation of stats and class that is just bad. But guess what? You can still use her. I have before. I've taken her to endgame, and she was not as good as Har or maybe some other units I could have used, but I had some success. I found some success. And I think you can see that, and I think that's particularly important to point out in a game where there isn't a ranking system. But I think the problem with balance in Fire Emblem, by this definition from Matt, comes when we look at some older games that do have ranking systems. For instance, we look at Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War. Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War has an issue where every single mounted unit is generally seen as better than units who have to walk on foot. And this is largely because the maps in FE4 are huge. They're massive, so having high move allows you to actually put work in a reasonable amount of time. Now, if you're not playing for rank, then the unbalanced nature of mounted units that have Canto and everything is less pronounced. If you're not playing for rank, which essentially keeps your turn count in mind, if you're not playing for rank, you can take your time, you can wait for your foot soldiers to catch up, or kind of slow your cavalier units to stay in line with your foot units, and you can make use of everybody that you would like. I mean, I still think that mounted units have a big advantage with Canto and everything, but generally their stats are lower to compensate for that, and again, if you're not playing for rank, that's not as big of a deal. But like I said, there is a rank system, and if you want to get the highest rank or have the highest amount of success that the game can provide or will allow, you need high movement. You need to save turns here and there. It's not super strict on the turn requirements, but using mounted units to the fullest is going to make it a lot easier, or even just possible, to get the rank. So I think Genealogy of the Holy War is unbalanced by Matt's definition of being able to use any unit, even if some are worse than others, with success. By the strictest of definitions right there. So I think that's just an example. And I think you could mention like Thracia 776, like without staff users, I don't know if it's possible to get the highest rank in Thracia 776. I don't know. That might be a thing. Someone let me know in the comments, actually. I'd be curious. And if there's a Let's Play of that or something, or an archive, I'd love to watch that, because that'd be kind of cool. So that's one as well. So, which Thracia 776 has a stricter turn limit than like Genealogy of the Holy War does. And warp and rescue and rewarp and all those different staffs are just really busted and really good, and you kind of want to make use of those. So another definition of balance in Fire Emblem is it's a similar idea, but it takes that and makes it more extreme. It takes Matt's being able to use any character with success idea to an extreme, and saying that every unit should be as viable as the next, or every unit should be as good as the next. And often cited cases for this one are Sacred Stones, which is FE8, for the use of Seth, who has perfect availability, has insane stats, is already promoted, has really high movement, Canto from after certain actions, and access to a really great weapon type and lances, and can just win the game for you. He's that good. You can solo the game with Seth. Relatively, it wouldn't be easy, but it's not out of the question. He's really, really good, right? And soloing with someone doesn't mean a whole lot, because you do it with just about anybody if you do it right. But Seth can do it really easily compared to other units. So Seth just has all the tools and everything to just be really good, and he just breaks the game from the beginning. And honestly, because he has really great growths too, even if you train other units, there's a chance that he'll just end up better than them anyways, or at least as good. So that definition of by that definition of balance of every unit is as good as the next, Sacred Stones is totally unbalanced. Another example is Path of Radiance, where you have Titania, who is obviously better than every single other unit in the game, just because of her near perfect availability. And I mean near perfect, I mean as close to near perfect as you can get if your name is an Ike. She's basically has perfect availability. And her stats are insane. She grows relatively well. I don't think she's as extreme as Seth, especially on harder difficulties, but she is still really, really good and just better than a lot of your other units. Now, I think there's one game in the series that does actually handle balance in that way, in making every unit almost or about the same in usefulness or as good as the next, and that game is Three Houses. Three Houses takes every single character in the game and gives them access to basically all the exact same tools, with very few exception in like units having special combat arts or special skills that only they have access to. And that's why when I make like a tier list for Three Houses, I don't name the tiers like conventionally. I don't name them, like E, D, C, B, A, S, like, which is what a lot of people will do. I'll name them something like near perfect, great, good, average. And I'll have average at the bottom, and that always makes people mad. Like, why is average at the bottom? That is not the definition of average. And I only do that just to get the point across that even the worst units in Three Houses are still honestly really good. There's not a single unit in Three Houses that is bad. And that leads to that definition of balance being met, where every unit is just about as good or just about as viable as the next. There isn't a single unit in Three Houses, unless you're doing some sort of challenge run like 0% growth or something, that ultimately dominates in the place of another unit. But now I want to move in to talking about, is balance a good thing for a Fire Emblem game, or does it even matter? Does it even matter to have balance in your Fire Emblem game? So by the first definition from Matt, again, the balance in Fire Emblem is the ability to use any unit with some form of success. I think that is important to find in your Fire Emblem game. I think you need to be. I think just the amount of replayability and freedom that gives to the player to be able to use whoever you want and still win is a good thing. I think that is a good thing. But I think the other definition, where every single unit needs to be as good as or about as good as the next, is just dumb. I think that makes for a really boring game. I think it makes for a lot of really homogenous cast where everyone feels kind of the same, and that's a problem I have with Three Houses. Three Houses, all the units feel pretty samey. Aside from like their special combat arts or maybe just like a different stat spread, they're basically all the same unit, right? So I don't like the cast of Three Houses because of that. I prefer the more unique cast of earlier games in the series. That being said, there is something to be said. That being said, there is something like fun about being able to use whoever you want with the like almost exact amount of success that you would have otherwise. So I get that. I get it. I just don't think that's very important. Now, the final thing I'll say is that balance overall in a single player game doesn't matter all that much because it's a single player game. Balance in like a fighting game or in a like an online shooter or whatever, anytime you're like competing, balance is important so that you have parity. So that people are fighting, they might be using different characters, but both characters have a chance to win. There isn't like one that's like overly oppressive and makes it impossible for the other to win. That's no fun to play or watch. So that's important there, but in Fire Emblem, it's less important. I personally think it's kind of fun to break the game sometimes and have fun with the really strong, overpowered units. But yeah, that's just me. Anyways, let me know in the comments, what do you think about balance? Is it important? What's your definition of balance in Fire Emblem? What do you think? And do you think there's any games in the series that are particularly well balanced, or do you think there are any that are particularly like unbalanced? I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on that and why. And of course, make sure to subscribe for more Fire Emblem discussions like this. We talk about Fire Emblem all the time on the channel. It's a blast. It's my favorite series. And of course, make sure to like the video to help other people find it. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you next time.